The government has just closed its consultation on raising the minimum energy standard for rented properties from Band E to Band C, and this is going to cost landlords between £6,000 and £15,000 per property to comply. But here's what most people are getting wrong. There's no final decision yet. The timeline is far from certain, and how you budget right now could save you thousands. Stay tuned, as we're about to explain how to avoid a £15,000 mistake. Before we break this down any further, if you want to understand the hidden policy shifts reshaping your finances and property wealth, go ahead and gently tap that subscribe button now. Property Brief UK provides clear, timely insights and summaries that keep you one step ahead. Right now, if you let out a property in England or Wales, the law requires it to achieve at least an EPC Band E. That's been the minimum since April 2020. The Labour government wants to change that, and they want to change it soon. The proposal on the table is straightforward but demanding. From 2028, any new tenancy, whether that's a fresh letting or a renewal of an existing one, will need to meet Band C. Then, by 2030, every single rental property needs to be Band C or better. That means approximately 2.5 million rental homes need some level of upgrade. The government's own figures suggest the average cost sits between £6,100 and £6,800 per property, but that's the average. Your property could cost more, considerably more. Here's where it gets interesting, because the current spending cap is £3,500. If improvements exceed that, you can claim an exemption. The government is proposing to raise that cap to £15,000. Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it also represents a significant shift in expectation. Landlords won't be able to hide behind cost cap exemptions quite as easily. There's also talk of a so-called affordability exemption at £10,000 for lower rent properties, but that's still being worked through in the consultation response. Let's talk about what you're actually paying for. The government analysis suggests the bulk of the cost comes from a handful of key improvements. A heat pump installation runs between £8,000 and £15,000, though there is currently a government grant of £7,500 available through the boiler upgrade scheme that knocks the net cost down to between £2,500 and £5,000. That's the major expense. Then you've got your secondary measures. Loft insulation typically costs between £650 and £1,200 depending on your property size. External wall insulation, if you've got solid walls, can rack up between £8,000 to £22,000 in costs, and cavity wall insulation sits somewhere between £600 and £4,600. The cheaper wins are what matter right now, because this is where you can take action without waiting for the government to finalise the rules. LED lighting upgrades run between £200 and £800 depending on the scale of the work. Draft proofing, sealing gaps around doors and windows, typically costs between £180 and £400 for a professional whole house approach. Double glazing replacement for a full property sits between £4,000 and £15,000, though again, that's a significant investment. Here's the strategic question. What should you do now? And what should you wait for? Let's start with what you should do now. The low-cost, high-impact measures are a no-brainer. If you haven't already fitted LED lighting, do it. It costs next to nothing, it saves tenants money on their bills, and it improves your EPC rating. Draft proofing is similar. For under £400, you can meaningfully improve the thermal efficiency of a property. These are the kind of improvements that take you from Band E toward Band D, or from Band D toward Band C. They're also improvements that won't be rendered obsolete by whatever EPC reform the government announces in 2026. Loft insulation is slightly more expensive, but it's still in the low thousands. If your loft isn't insulated or is poorly insulated, this is genuinely valuable work. It improves comfort, it reduces energy costs, and it's a permanent improvement to the fabric of the building. Now, where you need to be careful is the big-ticket items. Heat pump installation is the obvious example. The government has made it clear that heat pump costs are a significant barrier to compliance. They're exploring whether these should be included in future policy design. There's also the question of whether the new EPC system, coming sometime in the second half of 2026, will change how these improvements are scored. The government is moving away from the Standard Assessment Procedure, SAP, towards something called the Home Energy Model. That could change the points value of individual improvements. What does that mean practically? It means if you install a heat pump now, you're committing to that cost with the knowledge that in 18 months, the EPC system might change. That doesn't mean heat pumps become pointless. They clearly help with efficiency, but you might find that under the new system, you didn't actually need to go quite as far to reach Band C. That's speculation based on the government's own statements, but it's worth being aware of. So the smart timeline looks like this. In the next 6 to 9 months, invest in the small stuff. LED lighting, draft proofing, loft insulation if you haven't already done it. These are low-cost, high-certainty improvements. You get immediate value and they move you closer to compliance regardless of what the government decides. Then, pause and wait. Wait for the government's response to the consultation. Wait for the new EPC metrics to be finalised. And wait to see whether the appeals process and exemptions are actually workable at scale. The government is proposing to increase the exemption duration from 5 years to 10 years and to extend the high-cost exemption to £15,000. If those actually make it through to final regulations, and if your property qualifies, you might have more time than you think. Speaking of exemptions, let's be clear about what actually exists. You can claim an exemption if you've made all reasonable improvements up to the cost cap and still haven't reached the required band. You can claim an exemption if the cheapest recommended improvement exceeds the cap, though you'll need 3 quotes to prove it. You can claim exemptions related to third-party consent, property damage, or devaluation. These exist now under Band E. The government is expanding them under Band C, but they're not making them disappear. The crucial point is this: you get 10 years under the proposed rules once you've secured an exemption. That's 10 years of breathing room, 10 years to wait for costs to fall, for new technologies to mature, or for the rules to change again. It's not perfect, but it's not nothing either. Here's what should genuinely worry you less than you might think. The government can't actually mandate anything until the consultation response is published. That response was supposed to come in mid-2025, but as of right now, no date is confirmed. The 2028 and 2030 deadlines are the government's stated intention, but those deadlines are explicitly dependent on EPC reform being completed. And that reform is scheduled for the second half of 2026 at the earliest. So realistically, final regulations won't land much before late 2026. That gives you time. Not as much time as you might hope, but more time than the panic suggests. The economics also matter. Right now, landlords are genuinely uncertain about what this will cost. The government's own analysis suggests 2.5 million properties need work, and that the average cost is between £6,000 and £8,000, but that's an average. About 4% of rental homes might not be able to reach Band C economically, properties that are so fundamentally difficult to improve that even the proposed £15,000 cap won't be enough. If your property is one of those, exemptions are genuinely your lifeline. For everyone else, the strategic question is simple. Can you time your upgrades to take advantage of falling costs or evolving technology? Heat pump prices are trending downward. The boiler upgrade scheme grant might change. New EPC-eligible improvements might emerge. By waiting for clarity, you might end up paying less, not more. So here's what I'd recommend. First, get a current EPC if you haven't had one done recently. Know where you actually stand. Then invest in the small stuff: lighting, draft proofing, those £100 to £400 measures that move you toward compliance. Don't panic into a £15,000 heat pump installation in January. Wait for the government to publish its consultation response. Read it carefully. Work out whether your property might qualify for exemptions. Then plan your major upgrades strategically, not reactively. The government wants EPC Band C by 2030. but the government doesn't actually have the power to make that happen until the regulations are written, and those regulations depend on a consultation response that hasn't been published yet. Landlords who stay calm, who invest strategically in small improvements now, and who wait for clarity before committing to the big expenses will be in significantly better shape than those who panic and upgrade everything immediately. The EPC roadmap isn't written in stone yet. It's negotiable, it's uncertain, and it's dependent on factors beyond the government's direct control. Use that uncertainty intelligently. That's how you navigate this successfully. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Property Brief UK for more essential updates on the UK property market. We cover everything from legislation changes and market trends to practical advice for tenants, landlords, and investors. Ring the notification bell so you never miss an update that could affect your property decisions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.